Some debts can only be paid in blood. But what if the man you aim to collect from is already 6 feet under? Caleb Stone spat a stream of tobacco juice that hissed on the sun-baked earth of Canyon Diablo. His brother lay buried just yonder, another victim of Jedediah Crowe's greed. The headstone was simple, almost swallowed by the unforgiving Arizona dust. The wind shifts. A mournful creak of saddle leather was the only sound besides the buzzing of flies. Caleb adjusted his hat, the brim-shading eyes that had seen too much death. Crowe might be gone, ambushed and buried ignominiously by a rival gang, but the poison he'd spread still festered. Caleb intended to cut it out. The posse would be along soon enough, stirred up by the railroad land grab, but they wouldn't know Crowe's network like he did. He had to reach Crowe's hideout before they did, or Crowe's men would scatter into the desert, vanishing with the stolen deeds and the blood money. He felt it before he saw it, a vibration in the earth, a distant train whistle slicing through the still air. The railroad, Crowe's partner in crime, was still running, still hungry. Caleb had knelt again beside the grave. And that's when he saw it. Tucked beneath a withered bunch of wildflowers was a harmonica. Worn smooth, familiar there. He picked it up. It was his brother's. One he thought lost years ago, back in Texas. How did it end up here? Did his brother know more than he'd let on? Caleb shoved the harmonica into his pocket, a cold knot forming in his gut. He swung back into the saddle. He needed answers. The ticking clock was the relentless Arizona sun, beating down on his back. Every mile was a step closer to Crowe's hideout, a ranch nestled deep in the canyon lands. But every mile also narrowed the gap between him and the posse, their dust cloud visible on the horizon if he paused to look. He urged his horse onward, the rhythmic thud of hooves, a steady drum beat against the silence. The heat fades as he enters a narrow canyon, walls rising on either side. The air is thick and still. The only sound the scrape of his horse's hooves on the loose scree. He pulls his rifle from its scabbard. An ambush here would be deadly. He presses on, the canyon twisting and turning. Rounding a bend, he sees him. A young man, no older than 20, perched on a rocky outcrop, rifle aimed. He looks scared. Caleb dismounts, rifle raised, but not leveled. Crowe's man. Caleb's voice is low, gravelly. The young man hesitates, then nods, his Adam's apple bobbing nervously. I didn't want this. He made us. Can he reach it before the light dies? Made you how? My family. They were starving. Crowe offered work. Or something like it. Said he'd feed them if I did what he said. Caleb lowers his rifle slightly. He knew the feeling. Desperation could drive a man to do things he never thought possible. He remembers a dry cough. The young man has the same one. What's your name? What if mercy ruins justice? Billy Dietar. Does Caleb hand him over to the law, knowing he'll likely hang for his association with Crowe? Or does he let him go, knowing he might run straight back to Crowe's men? The wind shifts again, carrying with it the faint scent of wood smoke. Crowe's hideout couldn't be far. He glances back towards the canyon entrance. The posse was closer now, the thunder of their horses a growing rumble in the distance. Time was running out. Crowe's men. How many are there? Caleb asks. Billy swallows hard. 10, maybe 12. Mostly hard cases. But some are like me, just trying to survive. Caleb considers. He could use Billy. A guide, an informant. But could he trust him? Was this just a ploy to lower his guard? Take me to them, Caleb says, his voice hard. Billy looks surprised. What? You want to help your family? Take me to Crowe's men. Tell me where they keep the stolen deeds. What will it cost him now? Billy hesitates again, his eyes darting nervously between Caleb and the canyon entrance. The posse was getting closer, their shouts echoing off the canyon walls. I can't, Billy stammers. They'll kill me. They'll kill you anyway if the posse gets here. This is your chance, son. A chance to do something right. Can he reach it before the light dies? Billy looks down at his hands, clenching and unclenching. The dry cough comes again. Caleb waits, the silence broken only by the distant train whistle and the approaching thunder of the posse. He could force Billy, tie him up, and drag him along. But that wouldn't gain him any trust, any real information. He needed Billy to eat, you see, to help. A rattlesnake rattle breaks the silence close. They both freeze. Who pays if he chooses wrong? All right, Billy says finally, his voice barely a whisper. All right, I'll do it. A small heartbeat reversal. Billy's cooperation buys Caleb time and knowledge, but puts them both in mortal danger. They ride together, deeper into the canyon, Billy leading the way. The sun beats down, the dust swirling around them. Caleb keeps his rifle ready, his senses on high alert. He doesn't trust Billy completely, but he has no other choice. Dust goes quiet as they reach the crest of a small rise. Below them, nestled in a shallow valley, is the ranch. A cluster of rough-hewn buildings, a corral, a water trough. Men milling about, rifles in hand. They're expecting the posse, Billy whispers. They'll be watching the main trail. Where are the deeds? Who pays if he chooses wrong? In Crowe's office. The main house. Caleb surveys the scene, calculating the odds. 10, maybe 12 men. He and Billy against them all. And the posse closing in. How does he get inside without alerting the entire camp? And even if he does, can he trust Billy not to betray him at the last moment? The questions pile up heavy as the Arizona heat. What will it cost him now? They dismount behind a stand of scrub oak, hidden from view. Caleb scans the horizon. He needs a distraction, something to draw the men away from the house. He remembers the harmonica, still tucked in his pocket. He pulls it out, running his thumb over the worn metal. His brother's harmonica. A ghost of a melody floats through his mind. The dry cough from Billy is constant now. He looks at Billy. Can you ride? What will it cost him now? Yes, sir. Good. I have a job for you. Who pays if he chooses wrong? He spat. That's a story for another fire, old man. He nudged the boy. Get on your horse. We ride for Crowe's. The wind shifted, carrying the metallic tang of approaching rain. Caleb squinted at the bruised sky. Crowe would be holed up somewhere dry, likely his old claim shack near the San Francisco peaks. 3 days' ride, pushing hard. The posse would be right behind him, maybe too. What if mercy ruins justice? He wondered what a boy, barely old enough to shave, was doing riding with Jedediah Crowe. The boy, Elias, kept his eyes down, fiddling with the reins. Caleb had disarmed him easily, the boy offering no resistance. Fear radiated off him like heat off sun-baked rocks. "How long you been with Crowe?" Caleb asked, the creaking saddle leather a counterpoint to the distant train whistle. Elias flinched at the sound. What if justice kills hope? "Couple months, Mr. Dart. Since Pa lost the farm." Caleb grunted. Crowe preyed on the desperate. He knew the tactic well. "You ever kill anyone, boy?" Elias shook his head, a frantic bird-like movement. "No, sir. Never. I just hold horses mostly. Fetch water. What if mercy ruins justice?" Caleb studied him, the harsh desert light revealing the boy's desperation, his naivety. Did he believe him? More importantly, could he afford to? He tightened his grip on the reins, urging his horse forward. "We ride, and you keep quiet." The first drops of rain began to fall, fat and heavy, turning the dust to mud. The horses slipped and slid, slowing their pace. Nightfall found them huddled beneath a rocky overhang, the rain a relentless curtain. Caleb rationed out some dried beef and hardtack. Elias ate in silence, his eyes darting nervously. What if mercy ruins justice? "Crowe's got men posted," Caleb said, breaking the silence. "They'll be watching the approaches. We need to be careful." Elias swallowed hard. He's got a lot of men, mister. More than you think." Caleb knew that already. Crowe had always been good at attracting the worst kind. But how many? And how well armed were they? He stared into the darkness, listening to the rain. "Sleep if you can, boy. We ride at first light." The next 2 days were a blur of hard riding and snatched meals. The rain followed them, turning the desert into a treacherous bog. The horses were weary, their hooves sinking deep into the mud. Caleb pushed them relentlessly, knowing the posse was closing in. He found himself watching Elias, the boy's fear gradually replaced by a wary curiosity. He was quick to learn, quick to anticipate. Caleb wondered what he could make of himself. Given a different hand, can he reach it before the light dies? As the heat faded with the setting sun on the third day, they reached the foothills of the San Francisco peaks. The air grew thin and cold. Caleb pointed towards a narrow canyon, barely visible in the fading light. "Crowe's claim shack is up there. We'll go on foot." He dismounted, drawing his rifle. "Stay behind me, boy, and do exactly as I say." They moved slowly, cautiously, the only sound the crunch of their boots on the rocky ground. The canyon walls rose high above them, casting long, ominous shadows. Caleb could feel the tension building, the air thick with anticipation. What will it cost him now? He paused, listening. A dry cough carried on the wind. Crowe's men were close. He pushed Elias behind a large boulder. "Stay here. Don't move. Understand?" Elias nodded, his eyes wide with fear. What will it cost him now? Caleb moved forward, his rifle raised, his senses on high alert. He rounded a bend in the canyon, and there it was, Crowe's claim shack, a ramshackle structure built against the canyon wall. A flickering light shone from the window. He could see figures moving inside, their shadows dancing on the wall. He counted at least 4, maybe 5. More than he expected. He took a deep breath, steeling himself. This was it. What if justice kills hope? He raised his rifle, took aim, and fired. The sound echoed through the canyon, shattering the silence. Did he just walk into a trap? And what happened to the harmonica? he found by his brother's grave. It felt wrong to leave it behind. The dust goes quiet for a moment. Then shouts erupt from inside the shack, followed by the crack of gunfire. Caleb ducked behind the boulder, returning fire. The battle had begun. Who pays if he chooses wrong? Elias remained huddled behind the boulder, trembling. He wanted to run, to escape this nightmare, but he knew he couldn't. He was trapped, caught between Caleb and Crowe, between justice and survival. As Caleb reloaded, he wondered if he'd made a mistake bringing the boy. He was a liability, a distraction. But he couldn't just leave him to Crowe. He fired again, hitting one of the men in the shack. The man cried out, collapsing to the floor. Crowe's men returned fire. The bullets whizzing past Caleb's head. Is the price worth the trail ahead? He needed to move, to find a better position. But how could he leave Elias unprotected? He glanced back at the boy. Elias was staring at him, his face pale with fear. In his eyes, Caleb saw a flicker of something else, a spark of defiance, a glimmer of hope. Could he trust the boy? Could he rely on him to watch his back? He made a decision. "Elias," he shouted, "I need you to do something for me." What would he ask the boy to do? And was it possible that Elias knew something about the harmonica, something he wasn't telling? "All right, gather around the fire and listen close." Years ago, when they were boys sharing a bunk and dreams of striking it rich, Caleb turns the harmonica over in calloused hands. The brass is tarnished, the wood scratched, but the tune it held is as clear as the desert sky. Ethan, his brother, could always coax a melody from anything. This very harmonica. Ethan's prize. He swallows hard, a knot forming in his throat. How did it end up here, near his grave? The wind shifts, carrying pine and something acrid, burnt powder. He tucks the harmonica into his coat, a sudden resolve hardening his gaze. A piece of Ethan, a piece of the past he thought buried. Now, it's a breadcrumb. What if mercy ruins justice? He mounts his horse, the creaking saddle leather a familiar lament. He has to reach Crowe's hideout. The posse, led by that sanctimonious Sheriff Bartlett, won't waste time. Crowe's scalp for the Flagstaff robbery, whether or not he's responsible for Ethan's death. Caleb needs answers first. He spurs his horse, the setting sun painting the canyon walls in blood orange and deep purple. He knows Crowe's territory, having prospected these lands for years. Crowe, a newcomer, a viper slithering into a nest he doesn't understand. Dust goes quiet. The desert air cools, the oppressive heat fading with the light. He urges his horse faster. The posse south, following the main trail. Crowe's hideout, a ramshackle collection of cabins in a box canyon, lies north, hidden amongst jagged peaks. 6 hours of daylight left, maybe. Can he beat them? He veers off trail, trusting his horse. The moon, a sliver, offers little guidance. He relies on the feel of the land, memory etched in his mind. The distant train whistle echoes, a mournful cry mirroring the ache in Caleb's heart. What was Ethan doing out here so far from town? And Crowe. Why Crowe? Ethan was never one for trouble. He reaches a narrow pass, the only way through. Dismounting, he leads his horse carefully, straining his ears. Only the rustling wind. What if justice kills hope? He reaches the other side and freezes. A young man, barely old enough to shave, stands guard, rifle clutched nervously. Terrified, eyes wide. "Halt!" The boy squeaks, voice cracking. Who goes there? Caleb slowly raises his hands. Just passing through. Looking for Jedediah Crowe. Is the price worth the trail ahead? The boy's eyes dart back and forth. Crowe ain't here. Go on, get out. Caleb sees the lie, smells the fear. I know Crowe's here. I need to talk to him. The boy raises his rifle, hand shaking. I said, get out. What if mercy ruins justice? Caleb stops. He could disarm him easily, but something in his eyes gives him pause. A reflection of himself, years ago. What's your name, son? Caleb asks, his voice softening. Billy, the boy mumbles, gaze fixed on the ground. Is the price worth the trail ahead? Billy, Caleb says, I don't want to hurt you. I just want to talk to Crowe. He ain't here, Billy repeats, barely a whisper. And if he was, he wouldn't talk to you. Why are you protecting him, Billy? What's he done for you? Who pays if he chooses wrong? Billy hesitates, eyes welling up. He gave me a job. My family's starving. Crowe said he'd help us. Caleb's grip tightens. He knows how Crowe helps people. Maybe a distraction is better. A quick shot to the horse's rump will draw Billy away for a moment. The dry cough of a man hidden in the rocks above them breaks the tense silence. Is the price worth the trail ahead? Billy, you talk too much, a gruff voice growls. A figure emerges from the shadows, rifle leveled at Caleb's chest. A burly man with a scarred face and cold, dead eyes. A fear similar to Billy's, but a failure, not death. Crowe's men were more scared of Crowe than they were of the law. Who are you, stranger? The man demands. And what do you want with Crowe? What if mercy ruins justice? My name is Caleb Stone, he says, his voice steady. I'm here to settle a debt. The man chuckles, a harsh, grating sound. Crowe settles his own debts. Now get out before you get hurt. Caleb doesn't move. My brother, Ethan Stone, worked for Crowe. He died recently. I want to know why. The man's eyes narrow. I don't know anything about that. Now leave. I don't believe you. Crowe knows more than he's letting on. The man spat on the ground. You're a fool. Crowe will kill you before you even get close to him. What if justice kills hope? Maybe, but I'm willing to take that chance. He takes a step forward, hand inching towards the gun at his hip. The man raises his rifle, finger tightening on the trigger. I warned you. What if mercy ruins justice? But before he can fire, a rattlesnake rattle pierces the air. The man flinches, his eyes darting around in panic. Caleb used the distraction to his advantage, drawing his gun and firing a shot into the air. The man stumbled back, momentarily stunned. Caleb lunged forward, disarming him with a swift kick to the wrist. The rifle clattered to the ground. He grabbed the man by the collar, his eyes blazing with fury. Tell me where Crowe is, he growls. Or I'll make you wish you were never born. What will it cost him now? The man's face was pale with fear. He's in the main cabin. But you'll never get past the others. Caleb shoved the man aside. He turned to Billy, who was watching the scene with wide, frightened eyes. Billy, he said, I don't want to hurt anyone who doesn't deserve it. But I need to find Crowe. Will you help me? Is the price worth the trail ahead? Billy hesitated, his gaze shifting between Caleb and the fallen guard. He looked lost, torn between loyalty and fear. The night grows darker. How much time does Caleb have until the posse arrives? Caleb tucked the harmonica into his saddlebag, its cold metal a strange comfort against the rising dread. He nudged his horse onward, the creaking saddle leather a mournful echo to the distant train whistle. The posse would be gaining. Time was bleeding away. The sun hammered down, then faded as they climbed, scrub brush offering meager shade. Caleb squinted, hunting Crowe's spoor. A broken twig? Disturbed earth. There, a discarded cigarillo, Crowe's brand. He spurred his horse faster. A rattlesnake's rattle sliced the silence. Caleb reined in, scanning rock. Nothing visible, but the warning hung heavy. He drew his revolver, steel glinting. Snake or scout? Wind shifted, carrying pine and dust. What will it cost him now? He pressed on, the trail sharpened. Crowe wasn't bothering to hide. Arrogance or desperation? Likely both. He crested a ridge. Below, a cluster of ramshackle buildings in a canyon. Crowe's hideout. And riders. The posse. He was almost out of time. Could he reach Crowe first? He spurred his horse into a gallop, dust choking him. He could hear the posse as thunder behind, relentless. He needed a plan now. He pulled up short before the canyon mouth. Too exposed. Dismounting, he tethered his horse, drew his rifle. He'd have to go in on foot. What if justice kills hope? He moved cautiously, using rock and shadow. He could hear voices, gruff and nervous. Good. Maybe he could use that. Then he saw him. A kid, no older than 20, guarding the main building, eyes darting. Caleb could take him easy, but he reminded him of his brother. What if he could get information? Caleb stepped out, rifle raised. Hold it right there. Is the price worth the trail ahead? The kid jumped, hand flying to his gun, then hesitating. Who are you? Someone looking for Jedediah Crowe. Tell me where he is, or I'll get it out of you. The kid swallowed. He's inside. But you can't go in there. Too many. What if justice kills hope? That's my problem. How many men? Where's Crowe? He hesitated. Please. Don't make me do this. I don't want any trouble. Trouble found you. Now talk, or I walk. What will it cost him now? Maybe 10 inside. Crowe's in the back, counting loot. Expecting trouble from the posse, not you. Look, I can help. The layout. Caleb studied the kid. Truth? Trap? The posse was closing. Why would you help? I don't want to be here. Forced into this. Crowe threatened my family. I just want out. What if mercy ruins justice? Sympathy flickered. He knew that trap. Could he trust him? All right. I'll take your help. One wrong move, he could use a distraction, get a message to Bartlett. Tell him to wait. Seal the canyon. Nobody in, nobody out. The kid nodded, fear and relief mixing. I won't let you down. I'm Billy. What if mercy ruins justice? Billy led him around back, pointing out blind spots. He seemed genuine. Still didn't trust him fully, but he had no choice. They reached a back window. Crowe's in there. Just push it open. Caleb pushed. It creaked, but no one reacted. He climbed in. Rifle ready. Can he reach it before the light dies? Crowe sat at a table, surrounded by money. He looked up, startled. Well, well. If it ain't Caleb Stone. Wondered when you'd show. This ends here, Crowe. What will it cost him now? Crowe chuckled. Think you can take me? You're just one man. I'm all it takes. Gunfire erupted outside. The posse is the price worth the trail ahead. Crowe's eyes widened. Looks like your timing ain't so good, Stone. My boys'll deal with them while I deal with you. He reached for his gun, but Caleb was faster. He fired. Crowe slumped back, disbelief in his eyes. Gunpowder filled the air. Outside, the gunfight raged. Is the price worth the trail ahead? Caleb turned to Billy, standing in the doorway, pale. Get out of here, Billy. Get far away. Billy hesitated, then nodded, and ran. What if mercy ruins justice? Caleb reloaded and stepped back into the main room. Crowe's men were pouring in, guns blazing. He returned fire, taking them down one by one. The room was a scene of carnage, filled with smoke and the screams of the dying. Caleb fought with a grim determination, his every shot finding its mark. But there were too many of them. He was running out of ammunition. He knew he couldn't win this fight. He had to escape. What will it cost him now? He saw an opening and made a break for it, dodging bullets as he ran. He reached the back door and burst outside, into the midst of the gunfight. The posse was holding its own, but they were outnumbered. Caleb joined the fight, taking down Crowe's men with ruthless efficiency. The fighting raged for what seemed like an eternity. Finally, the last of Crowe's men fell. The gunfight was over. What if justice kills hope? Caleb stood there, panting, his body aching. He looked around at the carnage, the dead and wounded lying everywhere. Had he done the right thing? Was it worth it? And what of Billy? Had he escaped? The dust goes quiet. A figure detached from the posse, walking toward Caleb. It was Sheriff Bartlett. Is the price worth the trail ahead? Well, Stone, Bartlett said, his voice weary. You made a mess of things, but you got Crowe. That's what matters. What happens now? Caleb asked. Now, Bartlett said, we clean up this mess. And then we decide what to do with you. Can he reach it before the light dies? What would happen to him? Would he be hailed as a hero or treated as an outlaw? And what of the Apache scouts? Would he betray their trust to expose corruption fully? Caleb pocketed the harmonica, its cool metal, a stark contrast to the desert heat simmering through his worn gloves. The distant train whistle, mournful and low, echoed the ache in his chest. He nudged his horse, Jericho, forward, the creaking saddle leather a constant rhythm against the silence. He needed to reach Crowe's hideout before that posse. Crowe's men, desperate and scattered, were nothing. He needed Crowe himself. But what if Crowe had already skipped, vanished like smoke into the canyons, leaving only ghosts and regrets? The sun beat down. Caleb kept to the shadows of the mesas, the red rock baking. He rationed his water, the canteen alarmingly light. Jericho, usually spirited, plodded onward, head low. Who pays if he chooses wrong? Dust goes quiet. Vultures circled high above, drawn to something dead or about to be. He urged Jericho into a trot, the saddle leather louder. Hours crawled by. As the sun descended, painting the sky fiery hues, Caleb crested a ridge and saw it, a cluster of ramshackle buildings nestled in a narrow canyon, Crowe's hideout. Smoke curled lazily from a chimney. He dismounted, Jericho grateful. How many men were inside? How much time before the posse turned this into a bloodbath? Caleb drew his Colt peacemaker, cold and reassuring. What will it cost him now? He moved silently, using rocks and scrub. He heard voices, gruff and low, punctuated by clinking bottles. He peered through a gap in the wooden wall. Inside, men sat around a table, playing cards. No Crowe. Where was he? Gone, leaving his men to take the fall? Or hiding, waiting to slip away? Caleb circled the building, senses on high alert. A dry cough from around the back. Cautiously, Colt raised. He saw him. Leaning against the wall, whiskey bottle in hand. Jedediah Crowe. Is the price worth the trail ahead? Older, face etched with worry and dissipation. But those cold, calculating eyes were the same. Well, well, Crowe said, raspy. If it ain't Caleb Stone. Come to pay me a visit? I've come to collect a debt, Caleb said, low and steady. Crowe chuckled, dry and humorless. A debt? What debt would that be? The debt you owe my brother, Caleb said, grip tightening. Crowe took a swig. Your brother? That fool. He got what he deserved. He deserved better than to be shot in the back, Caleb said, voice rising. He shouldn't have been sticking his nose where it didn't belong, Crowe said, eyes hardening. Now, I suggest you turn around and ride out of here, Caleb. You're outgunned and outmatched. I'm not leaving without you, Crowe, Caleb said. Crowe smiled, cruel and predatory. Then you're a fool, Caleb Stone. A dead fool. He tossed the whiskey bottle aside and reached for the gun on his hip. Can he reach it before the light dies? The wind shifts. Caleb fired first. Crowe staggered back, clutching his shoulder. He roared. The men inside burst out, guns drawn. A firefight erupted, the air acrid with gunpowder. Caleb dove behind a stack of crates, bullets whizzing. He returned fire, taking down one. But they were coming from all sides. Outnumbered, outgunned, posse hours away. What if mercy ruins justice? Could he hold them off to get to Crowe? Or end up like his brother, dead in the dust? Heat fades. The gunfire intensified. A sharp pain in his arm. Hot dot. He gritted his teeth and kept firing, trying to keep Crowe in sight. He saw an opening and charged, firing as he ran. He reached Crowe, still clutching his shoulder, face contorted. Caleb grabbed Crowe's gun and tossed it aside. What will it cost him now? It's over, Crowe, Caleb said, hoarse. Crowe spat at his feet. It's never over, Stone. You may kill me, but there'll be others. Maybe, Caleb said. But you won't be one of them. Is the price worth the trail ahead? What would killing Crowe accomplish? Bring his brother back? Peace? He hesitated, gun pointed at Crowe's head. The weight of decision, justice, and revenge. A flicker of fear in Crowe's eyes, a glimpse of the man beneath. Fine, then. He heard approaching horses. The posse. What if justice kills hope? Kill Crowe and face the hangman? Or hand him over, knowing he'd escape justice? The dust goes quiet. Caleb holstered his gun. Is the price worth the trail ahead? one he thought lost years ago. The wind shifts, carrying the faint metallic tang of rain from the east. Caleb pockets the harmonica, his jaw tight. How had it gotten here? And why? His brother hadn't touched the thing since they were boys, back in Missouri. Now wasn't the time for ghosts, not with Crowe likely holed up no more than 20 miles south, towards the San Francisco peaks. He remounts, pushing the roan to a trot. The sun bleeds orange against the jagged horizon. He needs to reach Crowe before the posse does, before they turn the whole situation into a circus. Justice for Thomas, that was all he wanted. But the posse, they'd string Crowe up and call it a day, never digging deep enough to unearth the rot that fed him. The dry cough of the roan in the cooling air reminds him he needs water soon. How much longer can he push the animal at this pace? The desert whispers secrets in the twilight. Creaking saddle leather, the only sound besides the horse's labored breathing. He scans the ridgelines, knowing Crowe's men are out there, watching. Are they leading the posse, or playing a game of their own? He spurs the roan onward. Heat fades with the setting sun, leaving a biting chill. Caleb pulls his coat tighter, the worn wool offering little comfort. He finds a shallow arroyo, a place to make a cold camp. No fire, too risky. He rations water to the roan and himself, chewing on hardtack that tastes like dust. He closes his eyes, the image of Thomas's lifeless body flashing behind his eyelids. The harmonica digs into his thigh. He pulls it out, turns it over in his calloused hands. It's tarnished, worn smooth by years of handling. He raises it to his lips, hesitates. He hasn't played in years, not since... Well, since he lost the thing, can he reach it before the light dies? A few hesitant notes escape, rusty and out of tune. He tries again, a mournful melody that echoes in the stillness. It's a song Thomas used to love, a simple folk tune from their childhood. Dust goes quiet, listening. Is this a foolish sentimentality or a necessary ritual? He drifts into a fitful sleep, the harmonica clutched in his hand. Dreams of green fields and clear water mix with visions of blood and betrayal. He wakes with a start, the first light painting the sky a pale gray. He needs to move. He rides south, the San Francisco peaks looming in the distance. He finds fresh tracks, Crowe's men. They are moving fast, heading for a box canyon Caleb knows well, a natural fortress. He pushes the roan harder, the animal straining with every stride. The distant train whistle echoes across the plains, a reminder of the world beyond this desolate land. Is he chasing ghosts, or is there a chance for justice after all? Midday sun beats down, relentless. He crests a rise and sees them, a small group of riders disappearing into the mouth of the canyon. He recognizes the cut of Crowe's coat, the way he sits his horse. He's close. Too close. He spurs the roan, the animal responding with a burst of speed. He has to cut them off before they reach the heart of the canyon. The ticking clock grows louder. How much time does he have before Crowe sets his defenses? He reaches the canyon entrance, dismounting and tying the roan to a scrub oak. He draws his rifle, checks the load. He moves silently, using the rocks and shadows for cover. He can hear the voices of Crowe's men, the clatter of hooves on stone. What if justice kills hope? He spots a young man guarding the entrance, barely old enough to shave. He's nervous, fidgeting with his rifle. Caleb knows this type, a farm boy caught in a bad situation. He could slip past him, but that would leave the boy exposed. He steps out of the shadows, rifle raised. "Hold it right there, son." The boy jumps, his rifle swinging wildly. Who are you? What will it cost him now?" "Name Stone. I am here for Crowe." "You can't go in there. He'll kill you." "Maybe. But I'm going in. Now, you can either step aside, or I can make you. What if justice kills hope?" The boy hesitates, his eyes darting back towards the canyon. I don't want any trouble." "Then get out of here. Go home." The boy lowers his rifle, relief flooding his face. "Thank you, mister." He turns and runs, disappearing into the rocks. Who pays if he chooses wrong? Caleb watches him go, a flicker of doubt in his mind. Was that the right thing to do? Or did he just let a viper go free? He pushes the thought aside. He has bigger problems. He moves into the canyon, the air growing cooler and darker. The walls rise on either side, trapping the sound. He can hear Crowe's men now, preparing for a fight. He needs a plan. He finds a narrow path leading up the canyon wall, a goat trail barely wide enough for a man to walk. It's a risk, but it offers a vantage point. He starts to climb, the loose rocks shifting beneath his feet. How far does this path lead, and what awaits him at the top? He reaches the top, gasping for breath. He looks down into the canyon, seeing Crowe's men milling about, preparing defenses. Crowe himself stands in the center, barking orders. Caleb raises his rifle, sighting on Crowe. He could end it all right here, right now. But something stops him. He needs to know why. Why did Crowe kill Thomas? He lowers his rifle, a new plan forming in his mind. He needs to get closer, to hear what Crowe is saying. He starts to descend the other side of the canyon wall, a treacherous climb that could cost him his life. Is the truth worth risking everything? One he thought lost years ago. The metal felt cold against his calloused palm. Could it be? Thomas hadn't played a note in anger, only mournful tunes under starlight. Why would it be buried near his grave? The wind shifted, carrying the scent of rain from the north. Caleb tucked the harmonica into his vest, close to his heart. He needed answers, and Crowe likely held them, even if the man was rotting in hell. He spurred his horse onward, the creaking saddle leather, a lonely song in the vast emptiness. The sun dipped lower, painting the messes in hues of orange and blood red. Crowe's hideout couldn't be more than a few hours' ride if the map was accurate. He pressed on, the urgency gnawing at him. The posse would be gaining ground, driven by the promise of justice, or perhaps just the reward money. He had to reach Crowe's men first, before they scattered like quail flushed from cover. What would he do if they had already bolted? He'd have to find Crowe himself then, not just kill him and leave it to the law. The heat faded as twilight descended, replaced by a chilling desert breeze. Caleb pulled his coat tighter, his gaze sweeping the horizon. He had chosen the path of vengeance, a solitary journey fraught with peril. Was he truly any better than the men he hunted? He spotted it then, a faint flicker of light in the distance, nestled amongst the jagged rocks. Crowe's hideout. He slowed his pace, approaching cautiously. He dismounted, tethering his horse behind a cluster of scrub brush. The distant train whistle echoed through the canyons, a mournful cry in the gathering darkness. He drew his revolver, the metal cold and reassuring in his grip. How many men would be waiting for him? He crept closer, the only sound his own breathing, and the soft crunch of sand beneath his boots. He could hear voices now, muffled but distinct. He peered around a rocky outcrop, his eyes scanning the scene. A small campfire blazed in the center of a makeshift camp, illuminating a handful of rough-looking men. He recognized one of them, a hulking brute with a scar across his face, from the wanted posters, "What if mercy ruins justice?" They were gambling, tossing dice onto a worn blanket. No sign of Crowe. Yet, where was he hiding, the old snake? Caleb counted 5 men in total. He could take them, but the element of surprise was crucial. He needed to get closer, to assess the situation more thoroughly. The dust goes quiet as he circles around the camp, seeking a better vantage point. He spots a narrow crevice in the rocks, leading up to a higher ledge. Perfect. He carefully made his way up, the loose gravel shifting beneath his feet. From above, he had a clear view of the camp and the surrounding area. Still no sign of Crowe. He noticed a small, darkened cabin tucked away behind the campfire. That had to be it. Crowe was likely inside, counting his ill-gotten gains. He could storm the camp, guns blazing, but that would alert the whole territory. A more subtle approach was required. But how subtle could he be with a posse hot on his trail? He needed to create a diversion. Something to draw the men away from the cabin, giving him a chance to slip inside unnoticed. He glanced around, his eyes searching for inspiration. Then he saw it. A pile of dry firewood stacked near the campfire. An idea began to form in his mind. A risky gamble, but one that might just work. He carefully dislodged a small rock, sending it tumbling down the slope towards the firewood. It landed with a sharp crack, startling the men below. They looked around, their hands instinctively reaching for their weapons. What was that? One of them growled. Caleb held his breath, waiting for their reaction. The men hesitated, unsure of what to do. He needed to escalate the situation, to draw their attention away from the cabin. He dislodged another, larger rock, sending it crashing down onto the firewood. This time, the impact sent sparks flying, igniting the dry wood who pays if he chooses wrong. The campfire flared up, sending a plume of smoke into the night sky. The men scrambled back, cursing and shouting. "Fire!" One of them yelled. "Put it out!" They rushed towards the flames, grabbing blankets and buckets of water. This was his chance. Caleb scrambled down from the ledge, moving swiftly and silently towards the cabin. He reached the door, his hand hovering over the latch. He took a deep breath, steeling his nerves. He pushed the door open and stepped inside, his revolver raised and ready. Was Crowe alone, or was he walking into a trap? The cabin was small and sparsely furnished. A single oil lamp cast long, dancing shadows across the walls. And there, sitting at a rickety table, was Jedediah Crowe. He looked up, his eyes widening in surprise. A dry cough escaped his lips, and he reached for a pistol lying on the table. What if justice kills hope? "Well, well, well," Crowe rasped, his voice like gravel. "Caleb Stone. I was wondering when you'd show your face." Caleb leveled his revolver. "Where is it, Crowe? Where's the gold you stole from my brother?" Crowe chuckled, a dry, humorless sound. "Your brother? He was a fool. Thought he could cheat me. He got what he deserved. What will it cost him now?" Caleb's grip tightened on his revolver. "He was a good man. You murdered him in cold blood. Business is business, Stone. You should understand that." Crowe slowly reached for his pistol, his eyes locked on Caleb's. "Now, I suggest you leave, before things get unpleasant." It's already unpleasant, Crowe. Caleb cocked his revolver. Tell me where the gold is, or I'll make sure you join my brother in hell. Crowe's hand froze on his pistol. He studied Caleb's face, his eyes searching for any sign of weakness. But he found none. He knew that Caleb was serious. Dead serious. Would Crowe choose to die for the gold, or would he surrender it and hope for a chance to escape later? But the melody was off, a mournful, wavering tune that spoke of regret and loss. Caleb tucked the harmonica into his saddlebag, the creaking saddle leather a familiar comfort against the rising knot in his gut. Dust goes quiet, and the sun beat down on his back, each grain of sand a tiny hammer blow. He spurred his horse onward, the distant train whistle a mocking echo of civilization he'd left behind. Crowe was close. He could feel it in the way the wind shifted, carrying the faintest whiff of wood smoke and something else. Something metallic, like gun oil. He urged his horse into a gallop, the rhythmic pounding of hooves, a frantic drumbeat against the silence. He needed to reach Crowe before the posse did. Not for justice, not for the law, but for himself. For Thomas, what if mercy ruins justice? The sun began to dip below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of blood orange and bruised purple. Heat fades with the setting sun. He spotted the faint flicker of a campfire in the distance, nestled amongst a cluster of jagged rocks. Crowe's hideout. He slowed his horse to a walk, the dry cough of the animal echoing in the stillness. The posse couldn't be far behind. He wondered, not for the first time, if he was trading one noose for another. As he approached the camp, he saw a lone figure standing guard, rifle slung low. A boy, barely old enough to shave, his face etched with a nervousness that mirrored Caleb's own. Caleb dismounted, his hand instinctively reaching for the worn handle of his revolver. This boy wasn't Crowe, but he was a hurdle. He stepped into the firelight, the sudden movement startling the young guard. The boy raised his rifle, his hands trembling. "Halt!" "Who goes there?" Caleb stopped, his voice low and steady. "I'm looking for Jedediah Crowe. I have business with him." The boy squinted, his eyes narrowed in suspicion. "Crowe ain't here. He's gone to fetch supplies." Caleb knew he was lying. He could smell the fear on him, thick and cloying like cheap perfume. "Don't lie to me, son. I know he's here. Tell him Caleb Stone is calling. Is the price worth the trail ahead?" The boy hesitated, his gaze darting nervously towards the darkness beyond the campfire. I can't. He'll kill me." "And I won't?" Caleb asked, his voice hardening. "Your choice, son. Crowe or me?" He saw the boy's resolve crumble, his young face contorted with fear. "He's in the cave," the boy whispered, his voice barely audible. "But you can't go in there. He's got men posted. They'll shoot you on sight. What will it cost him now?" Caleb nodded, his mind already racing. He couldn't just walk in there. He needed a plan. He looked back at the boy. "What's your name?" "Billy," the boy replied, his voice trembling. "Billy Carter." "Billy," Caleb said, his eyes locking with the boy's. "I need your help. I'm not going to hurt you. I just want to talk to Crowe. Is the price worth the trail ahead?" Billy looked at him, his eyes filled with a mixture of fear and desperation. "What do you want me to do?" Caleb outlined his plan, his voice low and urgent. It was risky, but it was the only chance he had. But wait, maybe Crowe dead would be better than Crowe talking. He clapped Billy on the shoulder. "Remember what I told you, son. And good luck." Caleb moved silently into the darkness, his senses on high alert. The entrance to the cave was a narrow opening hidden behind a screen of scrub brush. He could hear the murmur of voices inside, the clinking of glasses, the rustle of cards. Crowe was in there, gambling away his ill-gotten gains. Who pays if he chooses wrong? He took a deep breath and stepped into the cave. The air was thick with smoke and the smell of whiskey. The light from the lanterns cast long dancing shadows on the walls. Several men were seated around a table, their faces grim and focused on the game. Crowe sat at the head of the table, his eyes cold and calculating. He paused, his hand hovering near his revolver. "Gentlemen," Caleb said, his voice cutting through the noise, "I believe it's time we settled our accounts." Crowe looked up, his eyes widening in surprise. A slow smile spread across his face. "Well, well, well," he drawled. "If it isn't Caleb Stone. I was wondering when you'd show up. Is the price worth the trail ahead?" "You knew I was coming?" Caleb asked, his voice betraying his surprise. "I know everything that happens in this territory, Stone," Crowe replied, his eyes glinting with malice. "You should have stayed away. This ain't your fight." "It became my fight when you killed my brother," Caleb said, his voice low and dangerous. "Is the price worth the trail ahead?" Crowe chuckled. "Your brother made a mistake. He got in my way." "That mistake cost him his life," Caleb said, his hand tightening on his revolver. "Are you going to stand there and talk all day, or are you going to do something?" Crowe spat, his hand dropping below the table. Before Caleb could react, the cave erupted in gunfire. The lanterns shattered, plunging the cave into darkness. He dove for cover behind a rock, the air filled with the whine of bullets and the screams of men. The rattlesnake rattle of gunfire echoed around him. The posse had arrived. Was this rescue, or a whole new level of hell? He was trapped between Crowe's men and the law. And somewhere in the darkness, Crowe was waiting. What will it cost him now?